All right, so let's get into the 8 different patterns that we want to be looking for and be ready to respond to, right? So the first one is schedule manipulation. This happens a lot with the holidays, but it does just happen in general. That looks a lot like forgotten exchanges or not picking the kids up from where they're supposed to be picked up from, right? Like, oh, they were supposed to pick them up from school and they forgot. That alters the schedule. Bringing the kids back super late because they're on vacation or they have plans with the kids, taking them to sporting events on like a Tuesday night at 8 p.m., stuff like that happens. Misunderstanding rotations, even though you've already had that schedule and parenting time rotation for a while, constantly requesting swaps, modifications, or changes to the schedule, and conveniently getting confused when it's of a benefit to them. That is like holiday playbook. Oh, I was confused. Like, oh, we changed this. Oh, it wasn't the same as last year. Oh, I didn't understand the schedule or something like that. Oh, I didn't look at the decree, right? That's like a number one that you got to be ready to preempt and be able to like respond to right away. Number two is last minute rule changes. This is one I have gone through for the 5 years over and over again as your kids get older and there's rules for the kids and then on top of rules that they have for you, having them change. So one of the rule changes is like changing pickup times and drop off times. Like, oh, I know we agreed to 6, but let's make it 8 just this once or stuff like that. Or actually, I don't like that holiday. Like, we're not doing our holidays like that anymore. I know I said that my family always has lunch for Thanksgiving. Actually, my mom's now having it at dinner time. It's at 5, so I'm going to need to make a switch, right? And it's never like what's convenient for everybody. It's what's convenient for them in the moment. And then also with the kids themselves, the kids all of a sudden are allowed to do something or not allowed to do something. Okay, that comes up especially as children age. I know there's a variety of ages for who's on the call, right? There's really young, there's preteens and teen like age, coming up on those ages of children. And I'd say with the older kids, the more preteen teenage crowd, this is like chaos that you don't want, right? Like when the other parents, oh, all of a sudden they're allowed to, drive other places besides work, or they're allowed to spend the night at their friends or when they weren't before. And then it kind of creates a situation where you're either like the bad person who's too strict, or they're changing it and making you seem too lax and too relaxed in your parenting style as though that's negative because you're overly permissive and things like that, right? So you'll see that. One that's come up for me as a personal thing most recently is the communication with me when they're with their other parent and what's allowed from the perspective of using cell phones, tracker watches, and like technology, right? And so there is a rule that the off-duty parent, it's in the decree or in some order that we have somewhere since we've got a few, that the off-duty parent has the right and the opportunity to speak to the children when they're off duty. So if they're in my house, they can talk to their other parent and vice versa. I have provided a phone for that purpose because I don't need the kids on my phone for 45 minutes or my iPad or my computer or something. Like if they're so engaged in that, maybe I want to use my phone or I want to whatever, right? So I have my own, they have a phone for house use for that purpose. I've provided that for a number of years. The other parent has not. And then we were having some conflict about when they were allowed to call and how they were allowed to call and where they had to be if they were using his devices to call, right? So there all of a sudden is like this new rule about how they can contact me, right? And then it turned into, okay, I'm not going to play these games anymore. So I got the watches, right? Those like kids' watches. And then they can call me freely when they want to speak to me. And now there's this kind of push to implement this rule that that's inappropriate technology for their age and they shouldn't have it, right? So rules that didn't exist all of a sudden now are creeping in, and that needs to be addressed because it's just another form of manipulating the situation, right? By creating these new rules that were never at issue before. Watch for those. All right. The third thing is playing the victim. Please, please, please don't fall into this. I have been the person who has fallen into this a lot over the years. Don't be me, be better than me. But playing the victim looks like they present themselves as like the really overwhelmed parent. Like there's too much for them to keep track of. It's not their fault. They forgot the backpack or the, whatever it is, right? I forget tons of stuff. So I get it. But like they use that as like this victim thing. Like you sign them up for all this stuff and now I'm responsible for it. And like I'm so overwhelmed by doing it. They play like mistreated, misunderstood, unfairly judged. And then if you react to that, like now you are the aggressor. Okay. There's an actual term for this in, I don't know where it comes from, but like in the community that studies things like domestic abuse and relational studies, attachment, and all that. And the term is reactive abuse, right? It's when you have been the person who's been victimized for an extended period of time, especially as women. A lot of times we don't speak up and we're not, very vocal about the emotional abuse, the manipulation, and those tactics, right? And we take it. We tend to be pretty silent until it gets to a point where it boils over. And then you start being the person who's screaming or yelling. I was just on a call with a client earlier today, right? And I was reading through her text messages, and she is not an aggressive person. It's not her, right? But she has been pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed to the point that she gets into this text message strain and he's like manipulating and twisting and gaslighting and all this. And she just snaps and she's like, fuck you. And she's going off in these messages. And I have totally been there, right? And the term for that, for what we're talking about, is reactive abuse, where you've been pushed for so long that eventually you react, and your reaction is so over the top that it becomes like abusive back to the person who was your abuser. And that gets used against you as like, see, I told you she was crazy. I told you she was unstable. Like, do you see how she talks to me all the time? Right. And so recognizing that sometimes that's what's happening when this person is like, poor me, right? And they're giving you digs and little jabs and all that. Don't take the bait. Do not take the bait. Parental hierarchy games is one of the forms of manipulation. This looks like them trying to position themselves as like the one real parent, the helper parent, especially if you've got like a real authoritarian type of co-parent, they'll position themselves as the one who has rules and structure, and you're too permissive, right? With all of these, the big thing is like, please stop taking the bait. Know that it's a part of a game. It's a part of a cycle. Like they don't even believe their own crap half the time, right? So it has to be that you're not constantly reacting to these things that are coming up. And you can preempt some of that, or you can, don't like give it back to them too much. But make sure that you're kind of like reiterating, even if it's just for yourself or for the record that you're making, that like we do have rules here too, right? That's when I'm so permissive. I'm so permissive. I don't have any rules for the kids. It's like, no, we do have rules. We just parent differently, and that's okay, right? So that's one of the big ones. You might hear like, well, I always make the dentist appointments. I always make the doctor's appointments, even if it's like one time that they've done it, or I'm the one who knows what's going on. It's like trying to create this perception for their own record and their own version of reality about who they are and like who's the better parent. And you really need to just stay the course, right? It's all a power and control game. And one of the big things is like, don't argue the roles. As much as you can, limit the communication down to near nothing, because that's all that really needs to happen. Logistics, and stick with that. One that you can look for and be ready to push back against. This is one where, if you know your plan very well, and if you've cleaned up your plan and you have a clear parenting plan in place, you can fight this manipulation tactic pretty easily. But this tactic is weaponizing the plan against you, right? That's people who never follow the plan for anything. And then when there's like that one thing that they can find, they're on you about how you're in violation. So this looks like, you'll hear the language, well, the decree says, per our order, pursuant to section XYZ 1, 2, and 3, right? And it's always used selectively when it benefits them. So like they'll be demanding strict adherence to this plan when it benefits them, but when it doesn't benefit them, like they're playing by whatever rules they want. I can think of a circumstance. This is one of the times I jumped into reactive abuse big time and lost my cool. And I'm happy to report that you have a new Taylor that sits before you. But this was like maybe a year or two ago. And um, I was the parent who did like a lot of the school registration, the sports registration, taking him to the doctor. I've got a kiddo that gets extra services, so driving her to here, there, everywhere, therapy, all that. And I would set all that up. And for the most part, I would notify the other parent when I was signing up for something, unless it was something that was recurrent. So if we'd been in it for 3 or 4 years and there was no discussion about not doing it, I would not always like say that I signed him up. An example of that has been soccer. I've coached it. So I'm like, well, I'm the coach and we've been at this club for 3 years. Like, obviously, you're in the app too, where it says the registration deadline. It's like you didn't say anything, right? And we got into an argument about where things were located. And the argument was like, you sign them up unilaterally for sports and extracurriculars. And it says right here in the conclusions of law section at paragraph 7, extracurriculars for minor children, that it must be by agreement of the parties. You didn't contact me and I didn't agree. Therefore, I will not be bringing them. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you just went to a whole season of these games and now you don't agree, right? Fast forward like a week later, he needs to meet his deductible for something, some other reason or whatever, and he can use his like dental as a part of that. I don't understand it because I don't have his health insurance. So he signs them all up to go to the dentist and like doesn't tell me and gets like x-rays and a cavity filled and like all this stuff where it's like, oh, well, I didn't, and it was at a new dentist. That's important too. It wasn't the place that they went for the last like 4 years. And I'm like, remember a week ago when I was unilaterally making decisions about this and you have a whole new dentist and had them treated and I'm hearing about it from a 7-year-old, right? And like that's what that looks like. And so I love to close the loop on things like that. That's what I call it. So when these things happen, I get right back in the parenting app because sometimes they'll happen in person or I'll hear about them. And I will immediately get in the parenting app and I'll be like, I just want to close the loop on what happened with this situation. And I like reiterate the situation back in the app, and then I'm like, thank you, like no response needed, whatever. And it's just there like for documentation purposes. And to be very clear that I did not consent to this and I didn't agree to this. So that if we end up back in court later, I don't want to hear anything about how, well, she didn't say she had a problem with it. She was fine with me doing this and whatever. Nope, not fine with it. Right. And you know that you're on notice. But that's what weaponization of the plan can look like. Another big one is ignoring boundaries, texting excessively, demanding immediate replies, like blowing you up. You didn't respond, so I'm just going to keep calling. I'm going to keep texting, showing up early so it interferes, right? Like this is the parent who shows up to pick the kids up from Christmas dinner and 30 minutes early, like honking the horn or texting the child. I wish that wasn't something that really happens, but it is. Calling during your parenting time excessively outside of the times that are predetermined, blowing past every no that you give them. Like you say no and they don't care, they do it anyways, right? And that's another place where you can reinforce the boundaries and be like, I will only respond via OFW or not responding. And some ways you can like push back and like keep your boundaries very firm, especially on things like communication. I think that's a good one to get in the habit of. But they'll send you 1,000 messages or blow you up or whatever. And let's say they're doing it via text and email and phone, but you've already said, I'm only going to talk to you via OFW or talking parents or app close. Go back into the app. So they've called you 7 times. Go back into the app and put in the app, I see you've called me multiple times. And as stated, I'm willing to co-parent with you or willing to communicate with you using this app. Please put any concerns that you have in here. And just like refuse to answer. Don't answer. Don't respond to the text messages, right? Don't take the bait. And then another one, if you're somebody who does react, I was so reactive. I did so much therapy, so much coaching, so much work to figure out like why I was reacting like that and to stop. But if you're somebody who reacts or it gives you anxiety or you can't like deal with all that communication, get in the app and turn off all notifications. So put your ex's phone number on do not disturb so that the notifications don't even come up if they call or text you or whatever. And then, you might take it off if the child is in their care because you would want to know if there was an emergency. But when you have the kid, there's really no reason for you to be talking to them. So put them on do not disturb on the phone and then only talk to them in the app and only check the app at the same time every day, once a day. Turn off push notifications between 4 and 6 p.m. before you cook dinner, whatever, you'll check the app. And then you check it, you render any substantive responses, then you're done with it for the rest of the day. Guilt tripping is one. So weaponizing the kids' emotions. Like the kids miss me on your time. They want to talk to me. They told me that when they're with you, they miss me. Right? Like doing that whole thing. If you cared, you'd compromise. Let's co-parent like a team. Let's be a team, buddy. And all of that. It's not happening. And then control through uncertainty. That's the last tactic. Okay. And I'll give you this in a cheat sheet or a list if you want it. But what that looks like is being super vague. This one drives me nuts, but I deal with this a lot. Like not being able to pin the other person down for a concrete response on something. Um, Keeping the conversations open-ended, like never actually closing off anything or making any firm decisions, delaying decisions, avoiding commitment to times, dates, costs, logistics. That keeps everybody like spinning because it does two things. One, you feel like you can never plan. And then two, you feel like if you make a decision, then are you going to get in trouble for making a decision they didn't agree to? And that can be a really tough place to live in. Cleaning up your parenting plan if you do have access to parenting plans that protect. So in there are communication protocols, and one of the communication protocols talks about making a protocol that says like, if I have a request, I will send you the request. You have 24 hours to acknowledge it, 48 hours to send a substantive response. And if you don't do that, you forfeited your right to move forward. Right. And so I'm just going to move forward. And that does appear in a lot of people's court orders. And it saves a lot of trips back to mediation and back to the family court on, things that could have been resolved if we just either communicated about them or if somebody was allowed to make a decision. So that's it. Those are the 8 common tactics of high conflict co-parenting and parenting plan manipulation and all the things for you to be looking out for.